Good morning, everyone. Let me start by saying this is an honor and a privilege for me to be speaking to you today. My talk is called A Spiritual Awakening, Stepping into My Divinity. When I first came to Unity, Reverend Phil was our minister. In his welcome to newcomers, he would say, "Don't believe a word we say just because we say it, but take it into your heart, and if it resonates as your truth, then please join us." So if anything I say today resonates with you, I will be grateful. And I would like to preface my talk by saying that this is my experience with having a spiritual awakening. It may not sound anything like yours. Unity honors all paths to God. For those of us who have been here for any length of time, we know that all our paths are different. But I know that we are all here today in this very moment together for a divine purpose. The second profound thing that happened for the first time was that I could sit and hear someone talk about Jesus, and I didn't run screaming from the room. Well, I didn't actually get up and run, but until then, until that point, if anybody even mentioned Jesus, I could feel my stomach get tense and I could feel the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I understand now that I was afraid of not fitting in, or worse, being judged. My only experience with Christianity was hearing about a judging, scary old man with a beard. When I first heard people talk of Christ, I thought that was Jesus's last name. However, in Unity, I heard about Jesus differently. He was a man, a rabbi, a scholar, the way shower. I liked that. Actually, I loved it. It opened my mind to listen and be open to something new. I heard a new language that felt familiar, but unlike anything I ever heard before. I was intrigued, and I also took some classes and read some of the Unity books that were recommended. My spiritual awakening did not start here at Unity, though. I guess I should go back a little bit and explain how I started on my spiritual path. I did not grow up in Unity or even come to it when I was young. I did not grow up with any religion. My mother was Jewish. My father was Irish Catholic, and they were both raised in very religious homes, and they both rejected their religion. They got married and had us kids and decided that we would be told that God exists and that he loves us, and that when we got older, we could choose which religion we wanted to be part of. So I grew up thinking there were two choices, Jewish or Catholic. But I also heard from my Jewish family who said, your mother is Jewish, then you're Jewish. Thinking about that now as an adult, it implies that you never really know who your father is. And that's not a very kind thing to say about women, but I digress. My father's side of the family didn't tell me much about being Catholic, other than I know they went to church on Sundays. Sometimes we would go to my grandparents' house and all the cousins didn't come until much later, and they would have to change out of their nice clothes before I could play with us. I wanted nice clothes to wear too. How come I couldn't go to church and get to have nice clothes? Also, I was taught only one prayer as a child that I can remember. Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. God bless mommy, daddy, grandma, grandpa. Kind of a creepy prayer to teach a child now that I think about it. The good news about having a Jewish mother and an Irish Catholic father is we got to celebrate all the Judeo-Christian holidays. We got all the toys, all the money, and all the great food. It was wonderful and a great time to spend with all my cousins from both sides. I was taught nothing of the history or theology of either religion. I used to say I have religious etiquette. I knew when to send fruit and when to send flowers. I did not really understand anything about either religion, just that my parents had rejected it. I don't even know why. I'm sure I asked. I just don't remember ever getting a clear answer. Another thing about my childhood is that I always felt different. I never felt like I fit in. And in retrospect, I know it has nothing to do with the fact that my parents did not raise me in a religion, but that's who I was. That's where my evolution was. It's just that I felt different. I was lonely. It felt like everyone else had the secrets of how to have a great life and being happy and feeling loved. I was on my own. I had to fake it or figure it out. Now, as a young child, I was a sweet kid, very smart, precocious. As I got older, I was a little needy and a lot stubborn. You see, my parents did the best they could with what they had, but it was not that great. And I grew up with emotional neglect and abuse and very little supervision. My parents didn't have the energy or any interest in parenting. They expected me to take care of them. As a teenager, I sought out things that made me feel like I could fit in and feel loved. I was terrible at sports. I was smart, but I really didn't like school or studying. I was more of a social butterfly. I kind of liked the kids that were not necessarily doing the right thing. I liked the cool kids, the punks, rebels. And so that's who I gravitated to. Unfortunately, they were the ones who taught me how to smoke and drink and do drugs and cut school and not listen to my parents or any authority. And basically, I became a teenage nightmare. I was angry, lost, and destructive, mostly to myself. Fast forward a decade or so, I was a full-blown alcoholic and drug addict. I was an egomaniac with an inferiority complex, codependent, and I had incredibly low self-esteem. I was constantly in one drama or another, always the victim. I was stubborn and unteachable. Very fortunately, or by coincidence or luck or God's will or my spirit angels, I hit bottom. I wanted to die. It's a long story, but I found myself in a 12-step program. First NA, then predominantly AA. I was broken. I became willing to listen and I got sober. And a few years after that, I quit smoking cigarettes. And then many, many years of meetings every day, reading the books, studying and practicing the 12 steps, working with a sponsor, praying and meditating and trying out all different churches, all different spiritual groups, and doing everything I could do to fill that God-sized hole in my chest. I had an AA sponsor and we worked the steps together. One of the steps was come to believe in a power greater than ourselves, and I struggled here. I was unwilling to believe in God. I did not believe that God or could believe in me or I could believe in God. I felt very sorry for myself, very much a victim. I had some good things and success in my life, but I always thought that was because I pulled myself up by my own bootstraps, put my nose to the grindstone and did it all myself. It also never lasted. It was never enough, or it fell apart with a big drama, usually of my own creation. Although I did stay sober, I continued to choose abusive relationships, personally and at work. I had very low self-esteem and my tolerance for drama and pain was high. I thought I was this wonderful person who kept attracting bad people, saw no personal responsibility for my part in any of it. I was always the victim or the victor. After several of these situations, my sponsor suggested I think about God differently, as God, good orderly direction. The light went off. I could accept that because in those first few years of trying to get sober, there was nothing good, nothing orderly, and my life had no direction. I went on like that for years, almost 20. I kept exploring different churches, reading different philosophies, trying to learn how to pray, trying to learn how to meditate, doing yoga, and my life went on. I had ups and downs like anybody else, but there was always this searching, especially when things were really hard or depressing. When things were good, all was well. Who needs prayer? Who needs God? When things changed, as life does, I would scramble looking for someone or something outside myself to heal my pain, fix some problem, or save me from some situation. I know many people who still live like this today, and I am so grateful to Unity for helping me see the truth of who I am. I'm grateful every day for knowing my oneness with God, that God is not separate or out there. At Unity of the Keys, I was ready to hear something new. I heard about oneness, my divinity. I started to hear others talking about divine mind, absolute truth, laws of nature, spirit, and divine truth. I didn't understand it all, but something about it sounded different. It was somehow comforting to know it was there all along. It was all worth it. Everything I went through brought me to this moment. I am love. Peace is here right now. I don't have to be a good girl or perfect or earn anything. It's here for me to claim now. God is in me. I am God. It all sounded so outrageous and so wonderful. However, a couple of years ago, I hit another bottom. This time it was my physical health. I recovered physically from addiction pretty quickly. The mental and spiritual recovery took longer, but this was different. I got very sick. I thought I was dying. The truth was, I was working myself to death. Although I was running a very successful business, I was completely stressed out. Most of my clients were very difficult, and I was contorting myself into a pretzel, trying to make everyone happy and to be perfect. Even my intimate relationship and some of my friendships were difficult and strained. I was trying to make everybody happy, but it was all for their approval. I never really learned how to care for myself, really set clear boundaries, eat and hydrate properly, take breaks, have fun, play, just be. It caught up with me. I was depressed and I had all sorts of weird symptoms that would come and go. Then it got really bad. It started with joint pain and I had fevers every night. Within a short time, I could barely walk or get out of bed. It took all my energy to call my employees at the time for a 10-minute conversation. I could not walk my dog or feed myself or even take a shower. I had to ask for help. I realized that if I didn't get help, I was going to die. So I prayed and I prayed and I called Silent Unity and they prayed. After weeks of testing and eventually getting a ride to Cleveland Clinic, I found a doctor who was able to get me a diagnosis. I had lupus. I was devastated. All I knew about it was that it was a horrible disease and there was no cure. The doctor said something I heard once before in one of my first AA meetings, that I had a disease that had no cure, but you could have a wonderful life and you only have to do one thing: change everything. Because I spent so many years in recovery and in Unity, learning, listening, and I was in such great pain, I was willing to do anything suggested. The doctor said, your lifestyle is not conducive to good health. Up till then, I was putting everything ahead of my health: job, relationships, and even my church. I had to change my whole life. I had to stop working for a while and return to work differently. I had to practice self-care in a way I never had before. And although I stayed sober all this time, I have to admit I substituted careers and relationships and lots of things and stuff for most of that time. Mind you, at this point, I'd been running a very successful business and I was proud, but the stress was off the charts. I also ate mostly good food, just not much of it. I was too busy. I hated to cook, and though thought I didn't have time to eat. I didn't have time for most anything. Most importantly, I didn't have time for me. So I took on the challenge. I changed everything. I started with downsizing my business. I started by lowering my overhead so I could work less. It felt like I was in semi-retirement. I committed to eating breakfast every day, no excuses. Take my meds and vitamins every day, no excuses. Meditation and prayer every day. And sit in the silence and get outside. I was like a 5-year-old learning self-care. And it's been a couple of years now, and I'm happy to report I'm almost in remission. Self-care is self-love. And when I care for myself, I care for God. When I feel love, I can love others. Twisting myself into a pretzel to try and make someone happy has nothing to do with love. All my life, I refused to care for myself and love myself, always searching and trying to get others to do it for me. Or worse, just the opposite, complete neglect followed up by stressful, dysfunctional behavior that nearly killed me. Over the last few years, and particularly since I started taking the SEE classes, I'm starting to understand God in a new way. Not in the dualistic God out there sitting on a throne, handing out love and praise with one hand and striking me down because I committed a sin on the other. I began to think and feel and speak of the Christ within, and that we are all God, and that I'm enough, and that I am love. And I have abundance in my life because the source provides abundance to all. There is no lack. I deserve the abundance. I just have to ask and be ready to receive. I prepare myself to receive by caring for myself, physically, mentally, and spiritually, taking care of my mind, body, and soul. This March, I will have 31 years of continuous sobriety. And all that's an accomplishment, and I'm very proud and very grateful for it. I've hit several other bottoms that only a spiritual awakening could heal. I haven't had this one aha moment, this one epiphany that brought me to God and a complete understanding of what that is for me. It's been evolving, and I've experienced huge setbacks and fears. I've had profound experiences of not fitting in and feeling separate from God, but they're getting less and less. I know the truth about God, and I know the truth about me. Unity teaches that we are all God, that we are all part of the divine mind, that God is only good and only love, and nothing else exists. My fears are not real in the sense that I'm either afraid I'll lose something I have or I won't get something I want. I have everything I need. The kingdom of God is here right now. I am enough. I am whole. There is nothing in me that needs fixing. I've heard this for years, but never truly felt it until recently. It's only recently that it's starting to sink in, that I'm actually feeling that way. And I know I'm not faking it just to fit in, because I make conscious decisions every day to choose to love myself, to care for myself, to love and care for others, and to love and care for the God in me. Thank you.